Buongiorno, benvenuti, sono Andrea Veca e ho il piacere di cominciare la chiacchierata di oggi che vede un ospite di eccezione, Gerald Blackie, CEO di Kaseya. Buongiorno Gerald.
Buongiorno.
Perfect. Come vedete l'italiano di Gerald è buono ma non ancora ottimo, per cui questa chiacchierata sarà in inglese. Abbiamo minacciato Gerald dicendogli che se non parla chiaramente verrà fustigato, diciamo io gli darò dei calci da sotto il tavolo. Abbiamo ricevuto da voi un considerevole numero di domande che abbiamo cercato di organizzare in una sorta di flusso logico. Purtroppo abbiamo dovuto fare qualche scelta e rinunciare ad alcune delle domande perché erano veramente troppe e non credo che nessuno di voi possa permettersi il tempo di stare qui tipo 3 ore a sentire tutte le risposte. Non di meno, finita questa trasmissione, siamo naturalmente qui, non scappiamo né Gerald scappa, per cui se ci fossero dei dubbi non evasi porremo rimedio. Parzialmente contraddicendomi, se vi viene qualche dubbio puntuale su quello che stiamo dicendo potete usare la chat che trovate alla destra del vostro video. With that, without further ado, you're very welcome, Gerald.
It's very great to be here.
Thanks for accepting our invitation. We have a good number of our best Kaseya users in Italy connected. And this is going to be like Crossfire. I think that's the name of the show on CNN.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but instead of having just 2 parts bombarding you with questions, you have some 30 people bombarding you with questions. So,
very good.
You know, just to make you feel relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get straight into the heart of the matter. And the first question is about the roadmap. We would like to know, well, first like a short-term overview, so what is already planned, what's going to happen in the near future, with possibly a deep dive into the mobile device management component, which seems to be very important to a good number of our customers, and also what is your mid-long-term visions? Where do you see Kaseya in 5 or 10 years?
Very good. That'll keep us going for a while.
Yeah. So I'll sit back.
On the short-term roadmap as it sits today, we're in the process of an extended rollout of the 6.3 release, and that is going exceedingly well. We expect to be through that release schedule here in the next few months. We've been making sure that we have resources available as people are doing their upgrades, and so it's been going very well. 6.3 has been ready and ready to go to market since September of last year, but this rollout we decided to do it in a much more organized fashion. We already are concluded and code complete on the 6.4 release. We will be showing that at Kaseya Connect, and it will begin rolling out here in the next quarter or so. And the differences between 6.3 and 6.4 are that we are introducing next generation scalability to the framework, huge performance increases, a complete rewrite of the Live Connect technologies, and so a wide range of new things both in 6.3 and 6.4. On mobile, we are continuing to work the mobile side. iOS, as most of you will know, is more difficult in that Apple does have policies that seem to be somewhat arbitrary, so we've been unable to get approval for some functions on the framework that we've had to remove. On iOS, though, we are continuing to develop our capabilities on iOS as we are across other operating systems as well. So mobile and heterogeneous device support is extremely important as we go forward.
Okay. How about where do you see Kaseya in 5 to 10 years? That's a pretty easy question.
In 5 to 10 years, I think it would be more expressed as a very complete platform of IT services. I think we are, most people will have seen by now, we have been included on Gartner's Magic Quadrant for IT systems management, in particular the client tools section. So our goal over time is to be included in areas like the IT systems management and IT service management quadrants as we begin to beef up things like change, release, CMDB, etc. So we've got a pretty good long-term roadmap that incorporates a number of functions that we don't currently support in the ITSM side of things. And indeed, we're looking to ensure that we continue to do more to bring what I'll call the people side of it into the framework. Being able to know who does what, when, and where is a very important aspect to embellishing what we do on the IT systems management and IT service management side.
Jumping around a little bit, given what you just told us, how do you see the IT service provider in 5 to 10 years? The typical IT shop, what will it look
I think
like?
there's a dichotomy occurring. Maybe I should not use it. I think there's really two aspects to the market. One is the service provider who spends more time with people doing projects, also responds to technical issues in more of a break-fix fashion. And obviously they still are engaged in providing software and hardware to their customers. And for them, I think there is a set of services that we can offer at a reduced cost that will be beneficial. As you move up the stack, we're seeing more and more of the very large organizations that are global in nature even, that are deeply getting involved in the IT management business, in particular becoming managed service providers. Mm-hmm. Those people have been moving over from, say, like print services. They may be engaged in supporting a wide range of industries, such as, say, retail, where they've had difficulty providing a remote set of full-on managed services, and they're beginning to move more into the mainstream of managed services as they understand how to do these sort of remote disconnected infrastructure support well. So I think we see two, one more on the break-fix side, one much more on the very remote, very automated managed services side of the business.
Do you think that the one on that side will have a bigger scale, bigger size? So those will be the big guys.
Yes.
Which brings me to this, to the last point actually, but in the interest of logic, I think it's interesting to raise it now. For example, Microsoft is starting to offering services as well, and so I have two questions there. One is, how do you see the small guys, so to speak, competing with those huge organizations, and is Kaseya going to react price-wise to these giants stepping in the managed service arena?
Well, I think that's a complex question, and let me just say from the outset that we, on our e-commerce SaaS platform in the cloud, already offer a set of free services, and then there's free to pay. So with our IT tools, we are offering services very similar to Intune that are very low cost, and we'll continue to do more of that over time in such a way to provide the entry-level folks with an opportunity to become familiar with the way in which these systems work. They can provide some services to their customer, and when they want to increase their capacity, they can consume different kinds of services. Mm-hmm. But it is clear also on the other side that there is a wide variety of opportunities for our managed service providers in the market globally, and we're seeing much more deeply into the larger corporate world, into the larger managed service provider world, where you're seeing, say, an organization provide support to 30,000 insurance agents, for example, that are in a very highly disconnected environment. And the scale and costs associated with providing support to those very large and highly distributed organizations is quite substantial. So we see opportunities for just a slimmed down set of services, like, for example, purely an audit and discovery and accumulate the asset. Providing some remote control, for example. Those kinds of things, we're going to see more and more of the system divided up into very discrete services that can be consumed for a particular purpose. So for a service provider that has a specific set of needs and doesn't want to pay a lot, can just consume that IT service without having to get into a commitment to buy the whole thing.
Okay. Good, thanks. So let's go back to the track. And since you mentioned remote control, now let's begin the dance. Some person has questioned the quality, the performances of the remote control feature within KLC. We would like to know if there are any news on that front, and with respect to remote control and to KLC in general, what's going on with Android and iOS, both to manage those devices and to manage from those devices?
Okay, that's a multifaceted question.
Yeah,
so let me address one thing first. Live Connect has been completely re-engineered, re-architected in the 6.4 code base, and extended out to provide a set of additional services so that we would be able to offer a service provider that does a lot of ad hoc support the opportunity to utilize the new Live Connect architecture in a non-agent based environment. So not only has it been rewritten and is it much more reliable and much faster, it provides a whole host of new features that will enable our current customer base to offer more services with. The Live Connect itself is utilizing VNC at the moment as its remote control container. We have in about 4 or 5 customers at the moment in the United States released our what we call KRC, Kaseya Remote Control, which has actually been developed here in Bologna. And we're getting wonderful reports back. It's extremely fast and there's a lot of wonderful features. In fact, we've applied for multiple patents on the technology. And it is a completely new architecture. It is not VNC. It doesn't use a tiled mechanism. It's not RDP. It's completely our own new protocols. It's going to enable us to do so much with remote control, which is at the heart of what many of our service providers do, that I think they're going to be very pleased. So putting Kaseya Remote Control into our test pilots on 6.3 today, it's hooked into the original legacy remote control tab just to get it working. In the months ahead, you'll see it added to Live Connect. So the new Kaseya Remote Control will be embedded in the Live Connect architecture, so it'll be complete Kaseya technology.
So how many months ahead, roughly?
Well, as you know, we're rolling out KRC as it stands right now. So that's a whole code base, and that needs to be tested out and made sure it works, because, like I said, it's vastly new architecture, right, and we just want to make sure it works. The Live Connect architecture is running now in 6.4. and we, as I said, we'll be demonstrating that at Connect.
In
6.4 is code complete, and we'll begin rolling out here just after Live Connect for those folks who want it. And it'll be available as a service, as an adjunct to 6.3. We'll make that available off the cloud.
So it is safe to say that by September everybody will be able to utilize it?
For Live Connect, yes,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the VNC container, yes.
Okay. Okay. And how about the mobile devices?
Mobile is ongoing for us. We're continuing to develop mobile, and you'll continue to see additional features and functions continue to roll out on the mobile platform as time goes.
So big focus on,
Yes.
on that
Mm-hmm.
word. Okay.
And indeed, I should probably add, with the Kaseya remote control technology, the goal for us is to be able to roll out the remote control technology such that we can remote control iOS, Android, and any other kind of device for that matter. That's why we have invested so much time in it, because it gives us the capacity to put it on other devices. So at the heart of what I would call the mobile computing initiative is getting the ability to remote control those devices, not just from them, but to them.
Cool. Another nasty question. New modules are released, but older modules are far from perfect. It looks like they are forgotten on the shelf. The old one, I mean, which is kind of frustrating sometimes. What is the strategy behind that?
I'm not sure specifically which they're referring to. A page, and there's a few pages that have some legacy code. But by and large, every module has a development team working on it. Each of these modules is independently developed from the framework, and,
Mm-hmm.
and in many cases, if one looks like it's behind the other, it is because that team is working on a separate release that's on a different release schedule.
Mm-hmm. Well, sorry, just some Italian. Quindi chi ha fatto questa domanda, se vuole specificare su quali moduli in particolare ha riscontrato questo problema, è il momento giusto per farlo. And okay, so I've asked you to be more specific about the modules that are that looks forgotten, so to say. And another even more direct question is, we are not really satisfied with the development of Kaseya over the years. So shall we stick to it, and why?
Well,
what would be your claim, your pledge?
Again, I can't really speak to why someone is not satisfied with development. That's that's a deep question. I can tell you, however, we are dealing with a lot of very large and professional organizations across the world, and we are growing at a very rapid pace with those organizations, and I can assure our smaller customers that might seem frustrated that indeed the technology does work, indeed the technology is revolutionizing the way in which large customers are managing infrastructure around the globe. And we continue to add feature and function as fast as we can. We continue to invest in technologies that we think are relevant for the customer base. Witness the efforts in Kaseya Remote Control that will provide our customers with some advantages that they won't get elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So in general, it's hard for me to understand what the question is about, because all I can say is we're working 24/7 on all aspects of our framework. We have a view that we have an opportunity to provide wonderful capabilities to a very large market across the world, and we want to be at the top of that.
Mm-hmm. But based on what you just said, since you mentioned the larger organization, should an IT smaller entity stick to Kaseya in your view?
I should think so, absolutely. I believe that we have something for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
We have in my view, a very rich and deep set of functions, and we have a lot of our customers who are doing exceptionally well around the world. I don't generally get feedback that they're frustrated with development. Sometimes people will say it's too slow. But we also have to be mindful of the fact that most of our customers, 10,000 of them, all their businesses run on Kaseya.
Right.
So we have to be exceedingly careful as we release major releases that we don't interfere with their production capacity. So we have to be careful, and we have to be much more reasoned about releases.
What is the average size of the license run by your customer?
The average size is around 1,000 devices
1,000
connected on a virtual
endpoints.
network.
Okay, which is not much bigger than what we have here. So the guys who are connected today are exactly in that.
Generally,
range.
yes, because over the long period, it's been in that 500 to 5,000
Yes.
category that most of the customers are in. But as you know, we had dinner last night with a customer who has 12,000 endpoints out there, just putting on another 5,000, and they're going, in the 10,000 every quarter. So again, there's lots of much larger customers coming on that are affecting that.
My concern is that okay, you're talking about big guys, but my main concern is that our friends are doing the right choice. So I think it's fair to say, or at least it's safe to say, that if your average customer has 1,000 endpoint, you certainly don't want to upset that size of customer.
Absolutely.
So maybe that's yet another reason to stick to Kaseya. I mean, you would be suicidal to piss them off, basically.
Absolutely agreed.
You would shut down the office.
We are very committed to our customer base, period.
Okay. Good. All right, let's move on because time is fleeting. Let's go to the integration of external modules, for example, BUDR or KAV, so Acronis or Kaspersky. Basically what happens is that integration within Kaseya comes very late with respect to the rollout by the vendor. So Acronis X.Y is released in May, and the features are available in Kaseya, 6 months later. Do you want to comment on that? Because it kind of creates some problem from time to time.
Mm-hmm. I certainly can comment. There'll be an announcement here in the next week or so about the Acronis relationship. We will be announcing that we have a new agreement with Acronis. Acronis has committed to providing us current code so that we can get much closer to releasing a version of Acronis bound into our framework that matches to Acronis's technology on the market. This is a new thing for Acronis. I would say new management has understood what the frustration is for our customers as well as for us, and has agreed that keeping us on a release one behind the current release is not a good thing for Acronis, and it's not a good thing for our customers. So there is a commitment from Acronis to ensure that we're on the current code.
Okay, so this will be improved in the future thanks to this new agreement. And what about Kaspersky? Any good news there? Or?
Well, Kaspersky, we are. What's the word I would say? We are at the mercy of our third-party OEMs. If they don't provide a release running on a given platform, there's very little we can do until they do make a release. And in general, Kaspersky's been very good about releasing code to us once they release it to the open market. But they go through a release process themselves that ensures the product is good. Once it goes through that process, they'll release it to the OEMs.
Since you're mentioning new platform, there is another concern that has been raised. Windows 2012 has been released for since a few months now, and Kaseya cannot manage those servers.
That's not true.
Well, it is. It has elements of truth to it.
It is not true. 6.3 has 2012.
No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the modules, Acronis and Kaspersky within Kaseya.
Those I agree with. As I said before, we are at the mercy of...
No. That's clear. But what I'm asking you is an advice to our friends connected. What shall they do? I mean, when you purchase a server today, you will get 2012. Like if you purchase a client, you will get Windows 8. What should they do when they purchase a server that they cannot manage?
Well, I don't know what you mean by manage.
Well, I mean, you cannot do...
Are you saying you cannot do a backup?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Come on, you know what I mean.
I just want to be very clear here.
Sure.
The issue is, we aren't magic. We can't fix something that's not in code, that's in code that we can't touch. So, others have other backup capabilities that they've been using in the interim. That's not ideal. I can say that as soon as we get a release from, say, like Acronis, it's going to be available. Okay. We are complete on the coding of the new Acronis release. The announcement here is in this next week, so the folks that are on here now are getting pre-notice. And, I hope we're back on track, and, I'm very pleased to say that Acronis is doing a good job of supporting us and our customer base. It's very frustrating for us as well when that happens. Okay.
So basically the advice is be patient and try to live with what we can have.
Right.
Can realistically have. Okay.
And there are I should also add, and we have done for customers, provide them like our Kaseya file and folder backup as an interim step, and we'll provide that to any customer that has we'll always find some sort of a solution for them. Might not be ideal, but it's not like they have to go bare.
Okay. One more question on Acronis, which seems to be very important to our customers. Well, I guess this question comes in a bit late, but the latest support version of Acronis does support some off-site backup features. They will be available in Kaseya, being part of the Acronis product.
I'm not deep enough into the technical side to say absolutely, but in general we like to implement the features that are given to us by Acronis, so I would think so.
So the full-fledged product, even though there are some point of competition with other modules that you had to...
Again, we wouldn't care about the competition between our modules, but I can't speak specifically to that question.
Right. Speaking of competition, I have two questions here. One, Marco is, well, this is not really a question, it's more of a comment. Marco doesn't find the translation of the interface too satisfactory, so there are many errors. I'm not sure this is a question for you, actually, but so be aware that there are some glitches here and there in the translation, and it will be
language translation.
Yeah, in the Italian version. Marco, it will be our responsibility to highlight those errors, not errors, but bad, well, actually he says errors, so we will nail down those errors and bring them to the attention of Kaseya, that will then forward them to the service who is doing the translation. And RAM72 is asking a wider question: who will be Kaseya key competitor in the long term?
That's, there's a lot of competitors out there today, so it's hard for me to look into the crystal ball and say, someone's going to be a major competitor to us, but we do compete with all manner of point solutions. We compete with companies like Symantec's Alteris, with LandDisk, with IBM and their Big Fix. We compete with quite a wide variety of different IT systems management tools and frameworks, and I think that will continue to be the case.
Is there any one of these that you can pinpoint that it's not that you are afraid of, but that you really see as a competitor because it offers a similar value proposition? Because yeah, there are zillions of point solutions, but that's kind of a different story. Is there any really dangerous or scary guy out there?
Well, I think products like Landisk, for example, are very well formed. They represent a very complete IT systems management framework. You know, typically they've been behind the firewall, do a really good job. I would think they would have the capacity to be a competitor. The Gartner Magic Quadrant has pretty much the universe of people that Gartner feel are visionaries in the client management tools space, and so you could look at any one of them and say maybe one of them will break out and become the dominant player. We expect that to be Kaseya, of course.
Of course. Okay, thank you. Okay, and last question is about pricing and pricing policies in general. Are there any new interesting thing upcoming? Or
I think I could probably elaborate more on what I mentioned earlier, and that is we're looking to much more divide up the kind of services that can be delivered over the connection to a client device, and therefore price those services in such a way that they can be easily consumed or turned into revenue for and on behalf of our managed service customers, as opposed to having it as one big application with a quote-unquote an agent that you buy. It becomes more along the lines of, what am I trying to achieve? I have a connection. What services am I going to deliver over that connection? And you'll see some of that now in the cloud offerings that we have, where things are being provided as free tools that are parts of the system. And when someone lands and they like it, they can then expand those services. So you'll see a lot more of that in the years ahead.
Okay. All right. So thanks, Gerald. Just one moment of patience. So we are about to reach the end of our chat, and I would like to ask you for an overall comment. But before you do that, if there are any questions, this is the right time to do them. So think about, pensate a qualche domanda se ne avete adesso, perché poi dopo l'ultimo appello, diciamo, l'ultima dichiarazione di Gerald, andiamo a chiudere. So, is any advice or comment or whatever that you want to leave us with, or attendees?
For the managed service provider, I'm very bullish on the opportunity for our customers to continue to grow their business and make money. Now, I can't speak to individual and specific circumstances, but we're seeing a continuous interest by large organizations worldwide that are coming in and buying up groups of managed service providers and looking to build those businesses out to scale. And it seems to me that's a validation of the business that we're in, the validation of the fact that if you're a business supporting 1,000 endpoints, for example, 1,000 employees in your virtual network, that it's a business that's going to continue to grow, become more valuable, and is also going to bring with it the view from larger organizations about how they get to scale. So I'm pretty excited about what I see going on in the managed services business.
Mm-hmm. Okay, just be patient because there is a question who's coming just in a second, and some advice for our, particularly for them, for the, let's say, 1,000 endpoints or maybe 500 endpoints service provider, something particular that you want to tell them?
I would just reiterate what I've said for years, and that is that it's definitely better to be looking to provide a fully integrated set of managed services than being reactive and utilizing just pieces of a framework like Kaseya. making certain that you have a system set up that is actually working for and on your behalf, and dealing with the issues that occur in your network is so much better than having someone sitting there just eyeing and evaluating what's happening and then trying to respond to it. So we still encourage our service providers to move away from the ad hoc, more break-fix like work and spend the time to ensure that they do have a fully integrated managed services framework, an automated system for responding and remediating that takes away everything but the exceptions.
Okay, so the question has come. Now it's going to be my job to translate it. Okay, be patient. So Kaseya is a huge platform, as I believe you know, and in some section of the platform, it looks like you're not really interested to compete with vertical point solutions. For example, AirWatch in the mobile device management area. In other words, your MDM, Kaseya MDM, is less feature-rich compared to AirWatch. In other sections, for example, Acronis and or Shadow Protect, you are signing up an OEM agreement. So what's the logic there? How do you decide? So we have on one side you go with a very specific, very advanced player, and in other area you provide a solution, yes, but this solution could be what's the word I'm looking for? Beaten by another player. How do you pick that?
I mean, that's a relatively easy question to answer, and in the case of mobile, for example, it's important to recognize that as a major platform provider, we are integrating with lots of third parties. We have a group within Kaseya whose mission it is to work with third parties. So, for example, Symantec has integrated their antivirus into the Kaseya platform. That's been done by Symantec utilizing our web services and APIs for them to be able to make that offer. And we're going to continue to do that over time. When we decide to go with an OEM, that OEM has to have compelling technology, a leading technology that would make sense for us to try to enter into an agreement. There are many factors that have to be considered, not the least of which is the economics and the length of the contract, because if the economics are not there, our customers are not going to want to buy it because it's too expensive. Mm-hmm. And we need a long-term agreement, because nothing is worse than a management change at an OEM. After the end of an agreement, they say they don't want to support you anymore. Mm-hmm. So these are all challenges when you do OEM-style contracts. When you're looking at doing something internally, for example, like Kaseya Remote Control, that's been an effort that has several people, a group of 4 actually, working round the clock since 2010 to generate that technology. We think that's world class. Okay. We also think it's also critical to the overall platform, and that's where we've chosen to invest a lot of time and energy, because most of our smaller customers are still more reaching out through remote control. And we need to be able to offer lots and lots of new features and functions inside that framework. So that's why we invested there. On mobile, we're continuing to invest in mobile, but we're never going to be, in the short run, as good as a specialty mobile provider. For example, we don't have a sandbox where corporate applications can be delivered and controlled centrally. That currently isn't in the product. Obviously, people like AirWatch who have lots of resources working specifically on that can get there quicker than us. Could we go out and OEM some technology for that? That's possible, but it has to meet the criterion that I already indicated.
Right, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Sorry, it was so hard for me to place the question. The answer was much smoother. Michele is making a comment about the pricing of Kaseya that should be differentiated based on geography. Selling MSP services in some region in Italy is harder than selling them in California. I don't know if that's true, but...
that I can't attest to.
No, of course,
so
but how about geographic pricing? Is that something you have thought about at all?
I think I'll go back to my original statement that we're beginning to divide the product up into categories that can be consumed inexpensively depending on what you're doing.
Right.
So that if you're more break-fix oriented, we've got some offers out there that are cost-effective, irrespective of the geography.
Yeah. It's not only the price tag that makes the difference.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Gerald. It was a pleasure having you here. So thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Grazie a tutti di esservi collegati e delle vostre domande. Questa trasmissione è stata registrata e sarà resa disponibile la registrazione, ovviamente, e come ho detto prima nessuno di noi scappa, per cui se vi viene in mente qualche altra cosa che volete approfondire, siamo qui. Grazie a Stefano Dozzo in regia che ha reso tutto questo possibile e buon lavoro.